whatever the nut behind the wheel is doing, it's what he's transmitting to the four tyres holding into the road that matters. So to learn a little more about tyres, we're going over to Firestone's British headquarters to meet Tony once again and talk about those four all-important bits of rubber.
This extraordinary object is, believe it or not, the cross-section of a tyre the well-dressed London taxi would have been wearing around about 1910. It's got rubber beading here and here, a lot of leather. In fact, most of this cross-section is made of leather. It's faced in leather with, believe it or not, metal studs along there, rather like a hobnail boot. And I'm told that the shower of sparks produced by taxis under heavy braking was a permanent source of delight to small boys. But by 1916, the enterprising motorist would have been fitting a set of these non-skids, and he could tell that's what they were because it's got it written all over there on the tread as a tread pattern. They ran at enormous pressure, about 50 pounds per square inch, and they had to be clamped onto the wheel, entirely unlike the tyres of today. By 1929, this type of tyre was in common use, the balloon tyre. This ran at a more reasonable pressure, about 30 pounds per square inch, and it isn't all that different to look at from the modern tyre of today, not at first sight anyway. But Tony Richardson of Firestone, why have tyres at all?
Well, tyres are your only contact with the road. They're the things that stop you, that steer you.
Make the brakes work, I suppose.
Yes, indeed. Without tyres, no brakes.
But a set of tyres is quite an investment for a motorist. Why can't you make tyres that last longer?
Well, we could make a set of tyres that lasted forever. The only problem would be that the first time you went round a bend, you'd be straight off the road. Tyres are a compromise, you see, between long life and the road-holding characteristics.
How do you manage to achieve this compromise, then, in a modern saloon car tyre?
Well, through the sidewalls and the compounds, or the casing construction, through the compounds that are used in the tread and the tread pattern.
Right, so you'd use that particular set of compromises, if you like, for this tyre, and quite a different set for, say, a different sort of tyre.
There's a racing tyre here, for instance. This is made for quite a different job. And as you can see, it has a very flexible casing.
Unbelievably so.
Very different compounds and a different construction entirely.
To do an entirely different job.
To do an entirely different job.
What are tyres made of?
Well, the bead, which stops the tyre from blowing over the flange, are made of high tensile steel piano wire. The casing itself is made of various man-made fibres, rayon or nylon.
Pretty tough stuff.
Oh, it's very tough stuff. And, of course, the synthetic rubber that's used in the sidewall and the tread compounds.
Nearly all synthetic these days, because in the days of the old balloon tyre, there was a lot of natural rubber used.
Well, again, horses for courses. Synthetic rubber is used predominantly in car tyres, but there's still a lot of natural rubber used.
Right. Now, a few years ago, I would have gone into my tyre dealer or into my garage and said, I want a new set of tyres. Now I've got a choice. Would you please explain the difference between a cross-ply tyre and a radial-ply tyre?
Yes, it's quite easy, really. Here is a cross-ply tyre, and as you can see, the casing cords are running diagonally to each other. This is a cross-ply tyre.
Cross-ply.
Cross-ply.
Right, fine.
And in a radial-ply tyre, the difference is that the cords run 90 degrees from bead to bead, right across the tyre that way.
Radial.
Radial tyre.
Ply. Right. Now, they are expensive. Radial tyres are more expensive than cross-plies.
Yes.
Why would I buy them? What's the advantage?
Well, longer life is one very good advantage of a radial tyre, and, of course, better road holding.
Let me take you up on longer life. Why does the tyre last longer?
Well, because underneath the tread, there are... there is a belt under tread plies which stops the tread when it comes down onto the road under load from closing up and causing scuffing with the road surface. That makes it last longer.
What are these made of?
Oh, they're made of fabric, the same as the sidewalls. In this particular case, they're rayon.
Right. Now, what about the road-holding characteristics? Why does it hold the road better?
Well, very much more flexible sidewalls, for one thing, but also, of course, you have a bigger footprint on the road. In other words, when that is in contact with the road, there is more of the tread actually in contact than there is with the cross-ply tyre.
You've actually got more rubber down.
Yeah.
Right. Now, let's take a hypothetical instance. I bought a second-hand car, and I've got it with 5 cross-ply tyres. I want to uprate it and get all the advantages of radials, but I can't afford to buy 5 radials. I can only afford 2. Can I mix them?
Yes, you can indeed, but not on the same axle. Mixing them on the same axle is not only illegal, but highly dangerous. You must put a pair on the back axle, pair of radials on the back axle, and the cross plies on the front, if you want to mix them.
Of course, that does leave you a problem with a spare wheel, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. To be absolutely correct, you ought to carry 2 spares under those circumstances, one a radial and one a cross ply.
Otherwise, of course, you're inevitably going to be running illegally the first time you get a puncture.
That's true.
Now, let's suppose, therefore, that I've been going along with my 2 radials, legally at the back for some time, and I haven't had a puncture, and I can now afford to buy 3 more tyres. Can I just go into my tyre merchant and buy any 3 radials? You've said that there are different types of undertread bracing.
Well, yes, there are different types of undertread bracing, and no, you can't really go and fit any tyre, because the steel-braced radial tyres should be fitted on the back if you have fabric-braced radials on the front.
Right, well, now it just so happens that we have a steel-braced radial tyre here. There it is, but it does not say it's steel-braced.
My best advice to you, or to anybody, is to go and see your tyre dealer, your tyre specialist, for advice on this point. You're quite right, it doesn't say that it's a steel-braced radial anywhere on it.
Another thing it doesn't say is the right pressure.
Well, no, because this particular tyre, for instance, this size, might be fitted on any vehicle, and the pressures depend on the weight that the tyre is carrying. And if you want to know the correct pressures for your tyres, look in the vehicle handbook.
That's the best place to get the information.
That's the best place to get it.
Just how important is running a tyre at the right pressure?
Oh, terribly important. I've got a picture here of a tyre that has been run under-inflated. And you can see these central ribs here are standing up. Mm-hmm. This is because during the period it was running under-inflated, the crown has buckled into the tyre, and this hasn't been in contact with the road at all.
Would that have affected the casing of the tyre at all?
Oh, yes. Yes, it would have damaged the casing of the tyre, probably making it quite unsafe.
So not only is that unsafe, but of course in terms of replacement, it's also very expensive.
Yeah,
What about overinflation?
Ah, well, you get the opposite. The centre of the tread wears out. And that's due to the fact that that is what happens.
The centre rises up.
The centre rises up when it's overinflated. You wear out the centre, and of course, you've got lots of meat left on the side. You're wasting money.
Again, dangerous and highly expensive.
It is indeed.
Now, something else that's on the side of this tyre. Let me move it round. There it is. The word's tubeless. Now, there's been a deal of controversy recently about this. If I wanted to, could I, with safety, fit a tube into this tyre?
Yes, you could.
It doesn't make any difference
No
whatsoever?
difference at all. No problem.
And amongst the other hieroglyphics, 165 SR 13. Now, 165 and 13, the size of the tyre. What does SR stand for?
SR is the speed capability of the tyre, and that indicates that this tyre is a radial tyre and has a maximum speed capability of 113 miles per hour.
113. Wouldn't it be easier just to write on the side 113 miles an hour maximum?
Well, yes, except that on the continent they don't use miles per hour, and this speed capability marking has been agreed throughout Europe, and every country recognises it and knows what it means.
So you have to put 113 or 180 kilometres
Yep,
and so on and so
right.
on. Yes, an international code. Now, what about minimum tread depth, Tony?
Ah, well, this tyre, for instance, looks to you probably quite good.
Yeah, it's
but
not bad.
in actual fact, it is an illegal tyre because it is below the 1 minimum tread depth required by law.
The 1 millimetre minimum?
1 millimetre.
Yeah. And yet it looks perfectly all right, and at first sight, I've seen tyres like this on many
yes.
cars. And
Unfortunately.
obviously, as a manufacturer, you've got a vested interest in raising the minimum tread depth, but is there really a case for safety?
Yes. Oh, yes, there is. We are the lowest in in Europe, certainly, as regards minimum tread depths. And 1 millimetre doesn't give you much of a margin. It really ought to be somewhere approaching 2.
Tony Richardson, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
So then, just let's recap. Point 1. Do not mix radial and cross-ply tyres on the same axle. If you want to mix them, you must have a pair of radial tyres, and they must be fitted at the back of the car. Otherwise, you're breaking the law. Point number 2. Do not mix steel-braced radials with textile-braced radials on the same axle. Again, if you want to mix these two types of tyres, put the steel-braced radials in a pair at the back. And point 3, try to use the same type of tyre for all 5 wheels. Don't forget the spare wheel. Pressure, keep your tyres at the correct pressure. You will not find this written on the side of the tyre. You will find it in your vehicle's handbook. And point 5, tread depth. The legal minimum tread depth for tyres in this country is 1 millimetre.